and welcome to Cooking with Sarah. I'm Sarah, and I wanted to share with you today a little secret I do with my chocolate chip cookies. I call these kid-friendly chocolate chip cookies because I like to add something a little healthy in my cookies. Now hold on, don't get scared. These aren't like super healthy cookies that sound good but you don't want to eat. I just substitute a little bit to make them, put a little extra like omega-3s in there so my kids don't know that they're eating something healthy, but I feel better when I'm feeding them cookies. And also, my husband is super picky and he would not eat these either if they were not good. So today I'm going to share with you that recipe. It's super easy. And first we need to preheat the oven for 350, and that is very important because I know a lot of people that make cookies and they don't understand why their cookies don't come out right. They're like runny or they overcook them. And it's because your oven needs to be heated before you put the cookies in. So that's the first thing I do before I start to assemble the cookies. So I know that my oven is all heated and ready to go when I'm done with the cookies. So first, we're gonna do 1 cup of butter. And preferably, you want this room temperature. You can nuke it in the microwave for 10 to 15 seconds on like 2 different sides to try to soften it, but that will help with creaming your butter and sugar together. So these are, you can see that they're soft, a little firm, but because I'm using the mixer, it's gonna have no problem mixing the butter with the sugar. Carefully slide that in. And then I'm going to put 1 cup of white sugar and 1 cup of brown sugar. I like to use light brown sugar. Today I'm using a dark brown sugar, which will make the cookies just look a little darker than if you use a light brown sugar. And then we're going to set that in and lift this up, doing everything backwards so it's a little tricky. And start. You just need to put it on the first level and that'll mix everything really well. And you want to cream the butter with the sugar so that it's all like one consistency. Okay, sometimes you want to make sure it's all one consistency, but sometimes it kind of sticks to the blades here. So you can push it down a little bit so you can get the butter and the sugar all mixed up so you don't have like chunks of butter or like chunks of the brown sugar together. So I'm going to mix it just a little bit more. And I'm going to mix it on 2 just to speed it up a little bit. Now that it's all mixed, you add the eggs 1 at a time. So it's good to hit it on a flat surface, and then you can pop it in. And I'm going to just put these in 1 at a time. then next you're going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Okay, now that that's all mixed together, I'm going to lower this up. I'm going to add just 2 cups of white flour. It's all-purpose white flour. Probably put like about a cup in and stir it, and then add the rest in. And then after the 2 cups of flour, that's when I like to put the baking soda. It's 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Kind of sprinkle that around, and then a half a teaspoon of salt. Okay. And I'm going to push some of that dough down so it all mixes with the salt and the baking soda. And now I want to add my secret ingredients. Now you can use like wheat germ, but today I have some extra organic rice cereal. And this is great because it works just like flour, and yet it has extra vitamins in it. So I don't feel guilty letting my kids eat 2, 5, 6 cookies. And we're gonna substitute 1 cup of flour, and we're going to use 1 cup of this rice cereal. And that is my secret ingredients. And like I said, I have a picky husband, and he doesn't notice at all that I've added a cup of this baby cereal. I mean, that's really what it is. But it works great as flour, and you know, it's healthier. So we're gonna let this mix, and I'm also gonna get about 1 tablespoon of hot water to put in. And what the hot water does is it helps the cookies not be too dry, and mixes everything together. So I'm going to pull off this piece, and first you need to unplug it just in case. Unplug your mixer and then pull this off, because you don't want it accidentally turning on while you're trying to get that off. Just a good safety tip. Okay. I'm going to set all this down. And pull this off so I can mix it a little bit off the sides itself. And now the best part. The best part, my kids would always say, is adding the chocolate chips. And another secret I like to use are 2 different sizes of chocolate chips. So today I have the semi-sweet minis, and so I'm going to use a cup of these. Or There's just a little bit left, so a little over a cup. And then I'm also going to use the regular size chocolate chips. And these are milk chocolate chips. So you also have two different types of chocolates, and they're two different sizes. So when they like melt and you get a warm cookie, it's like double the chocolate. It's really nice. And then mix these together. And normally at this time when I make these, I have kids that are begging for a taste. They want a taste, or really they just want the chocolate chips, and they like both. So, like I said, I used my secret ingredient, so I don't feel guilty when I let them have like a couple tablespoons of the raw cookie dough. As long as it's fresh, raw cookie dough, I'll let them have a little bit. And some extra chocolate chips, of course. Okay, now it's all mixed together. I want to get my cookie sheet. And my favorite tool that I like to use is this little cookie scoop. It's just like an ice cream scoop, but it's like perfect size for cookies. So they're like not too big, but also not too small, and they're more uniform. So I'm gonna scoop a couple of these out. My oven, I've noticed, is already at 350. And now another tip would be when you're doing multiple batches of cookies in the oven, you know, the first batch is going to cook 9 to 10 minutes, but your second batch will cook faster because your cookie sheet will already be warm. So with that already being warm, you need to watch more like 8 to 9 minutes, and those cookies will be done. So I put 4 rows of 3 sets of cookies. And now these are ready to go into the oven. I also like to use this silicone sheet. It helps get them off the cookie sheet a little cleaner. Or if you don't have this, parchment paper works really well. And then you have less of a cleanup too. So I'm going to set the oven for 9 minutes, and at 9 minutes I'm going to check, but since this is our first batch, it most likely will be more to 10 to maybe even 11 minutes. But when I do the second batch, you need to check it at 9 minutes, 8 to 9 minutes, because that will cook faster. Okay, and now while those are in the oven, another favorite thing that my kids really like are frozen cookies. And there are like 2 reasons why I do this. The first is I love a warm cookie right out of the oven. And if I make this whole batch and put it in the oven, I'm gonna have cookies sitting out for maybe 2 to 3 days, and they're just not as good. Not as good as having a cookie right out of the oven. So what I've done is I use my same cookie scooper, and I will scoop the cookies out, put them in a pan, and I have another silicone thing, or you can use parchment paper, and set them on here, and then I will put them in the freezer to freeze them so they will get cold. And then I will move them to a container with a sealed lid on them, and then when I want a fresh cookie, I can just open the freezer and pull the cookies out. I don't have to make them, and I could just put them in the oven for about 11 to 12 minutes because they will be frozen. And then I'll have a warm chocolate chip cookie. That's how I like them, but what my kids like to do is they just like to eat the frozen cookie by itself. And like I said, because I've added the extra omega-3s in there, extra vitamins, I don't mind too much that they go in there and get a cookie for a snack. You can also substitute that 1 cup of flour for like wheat germ. That's also a good substitute. So, and now with freezing them, you don't have to separate them as far apart as you do with putting them in the oven because they're not going to spread. But you also don't want them like touching each other because then they'll freeze together. And it's just a little harder to break them apart. But once they freeze for about 15 minutes, then you can just pile them into a container and they can touch each other. They won't get stuck together. So I'm going to scoop out a few more of these and stick them in the freezer. So really when I cook cookies, I do maybe half of it, I bake fresh cookies, and then half of them I will freeze into these pre-made cookie balls. And then I feel better that I'm not feeling guilty that I've just made a whole container of cookies and let my kids eat them, because we can save some for later. And they will save for up to a couple weeks if they last that long, because they will really just last maybe a couple days. But I mean, they'll be good up to a month. I've had them in the freezer. Okay, I'm gonna stick these in the freezer. Okay, and now I'm going to check on my cookies. It's just been 5 minutes, so they're not quite done. So while they're still cooking and I've got the cookies in the freezer, I'm going to clean up a little bit. Okay, now with this being the first batch, I had to wait until almost 12 minutes. To make sure that they were cooked all the way, but still soft. But my next batch that I put in, I will only have to cook them for 9 minutes because the oven will be warm and my pan will be warm as well. It's good to let these cool a little bit, about 1 to 2 minutes before you pull them off. That way they don't break apart while you're trying to put them on the cookie rack. Okay, now that I've waited 2 minutes, I'm going to pull these off and set them on the rack. It's nice to put them on the rack so they cool quicker and then they cool evenly too. So then the cookies don't overcook, so they're not dry and crumbly. If you don't have a rack, I mean, just letting them cool on a plate. It will still be delicious. And now I'm also going to go to the freezer and check on my frozen cookies. So I'm going to let these cool. And these cool, and I'm going to set this over here. Check on my frozen cookies. And they're hard enough now that I can put them in the container and they won't stick to each other. See, some of these kind of are touching each other, but they pull apart really easily. And then I'll stack these in here, put a lid on them, and stick them in the freezer. And then the next time I want some warm cookies, like tomorrow, I could just pull 3 or 4, put them on a pan, stick them in the oven for 350 for about 12 minutes, and they will be ready to go. Or you could just eat them cold, like my kids love to do. So that is what I call kid-friendly cookies. So it's a great way to eat them now, or you can eat them tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Comment below if there's anything you'd like to see me cook.